Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. As you know, every week I tend to start off the conversation the same way, talking about how I know my guest for the week. A lot of times it's people I've known for a long time, or it could be people I just met through networking, because I always like to say I encourage us to be curious and to be good humans. Remember people, hold on to their business card, get out there in your community, go to business mixers, go to art shows, go support local artists, get out there and meet people and, learn their stories. There's always something we can learn from one another, and you never know how you can help one another. So for this week, I actually do not have a connection at all to my guest, but I was delighted to hear from actually her PR company reached out to me and said, "Hey, we would love for you to have Shirah on your podcast." And I learned a little bit about Shirah, and I was thrilled. So my guest this week is Shirah Benarde, who is actually the inventor, and we'll get into more details. But she's the inventor of a very important, awesome product called NightCap. It is the drink spiking prevention scrunchie, and I've actually got the scrunchie in my hair right now. But I will let Shirah tell us all about what inspired that. We'll get into the details about its progression of the product and all of that. So, welcome, Shirah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I love the intro and I agree with everything you said. Go get out there.
Yeah, I know it's funny. I have some real introverted friends, and I still believe that I kind of am too. They're like, I don't want to go out there. And I'm like, such good stuff happens when we get out there and meet people and we work together and collaborate. I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to make yourself uncomfortable sometimes, and I feel like you get rewarded when you put yourself out there. So I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I took improv, our instructor used to say, get through the fire to get to the cooling waters. There's always something better after you're uncomfortable. But let's talk a little bit about you. I know we'll get into the product, but I know right now you're in Florida. You said South Florida. Is that where you're from? If you want to just tell us a little bit about where you're from, and then we'll get into the product.
Yeah, I was born in Boca Raton, Florida, and I grew up with an older brother, mom, dad, and we just kind of moved north. We would move like to Delray, then West Palm Beach, and now um, we're here in West Palm. I don't live with any of my family, but they live all around me, so that's awesome. I lived in Tampa for a little bit because I went to University of Tampa for a year and a half. And then when I decided to become full time on the company, I ended up leaving school and moved back home to work full time with my brother in West Palm Beach.
So tell us a little bit, and I'll admit, I don't know. Before I heard from, the PR company you're working with, I don't know that I had heard of your product, but maybe I had, because I do watch Shark Tank. I'm a fan of that. And I would watch it through the years and then I would stop. But I always find the stories fascinating because I think, again, kind of like with my intro and connection, you learn so much by watching about people's dreams, what influenced them, how they've collaborated with people to bring their dreams to fruition. So this is a really cool invention. Why don't you tell me about how you were inspired to even come up with something like this, and then we'll talk about the progression and what happened and how it's taken off.
So I was 16 at the time, and I had an older friend that was roofied at the bar. A few weeks later, I went to bed one night and I thought of a scrunchie that doubles as a drink cover in a dream when I was sleeping. And when I woke up the next morning, I made a prototype out of my mom's stockings and a scrunchie from my room. I just kind of wanted to create it. I sat down with my dad, and instead of telling him, I went looking all around my house for things that would make sense for the material. And I taped it together and I told him, what I was trying to accomplish here. And he actually was like, wait, this actually makes sense. And he immediately said nightcap or top hat. And there was definitely a clear winner. So we called it nightcap and we started taking the first couple steps. We didn't know what we were doing, but the first couple steps included like filing a patent, finding a graphic designer, a local seamstress to create some of the first prototypes and just get the ball rolling. We didn't really know what was like where we were trying to go with it, but it was an idea that I felt had potential, and that's really all we needed to um, get it going.
Yeah, and for those who watch on YouTube, I'm just going to show you real quick. I actually have the scrunchie in my hair, and I will say it's very comfy. I like that it doesn't like it's very comfortable, and you'll see that I have it apart, but this part that actually goes over your cup, and there's a little hole for your straw, so this would stretch over a cup. It's tucked in neatly inside this scrunchie, so I think it's really cool. And I've got a couple that I'll be giving away in a raffle, but I think it's so clever. I have to ask you though, like you really thought of this in a dream? It's so funny. If we could be solving the world's problems in our dreams, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's funny today, actually, I had a call with a dream expert like a few hours ago, and we talked all about um, what it really means and how it really happens. People, creating things in their sleep. So that was a really cool experience to just talk with her about that. And yeah, I mean, it literally formed in my head. And I just remember having, she was telling me how like I had this sense of awareness when I was sleeping, because I did. I like actually reminded myself when it happened, like, please remember this in the morning, because I usually don't remember these like dreams that I have. But this specifically, I needed to remember. So, um, we, yeah, we just started working on it. And my brother, he was going to Florida State at the time. He knew how bad of a problem drink spiking was on his college campus. So he ended up dropping pretty much everything that he was doing to work with me. And he, literally was full time working on this even before I was. So we started working together. We uh started an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign to raise money, and he at the time was still, going through like his last year of school, so he was able to like um participate in pitch competitions, and he won a bunch of money. We were raising money through the Indiegogo, and we're taking that money to go and buy a bunch of inventory. But nobody wanted the product at first. So we actually ended up posting a lot on TikTok. And one of our videos gained a lot of traction during COVID, but people weren't going out. People didn't really need the product. However, this one video ended up generating like $40,000 in sales. And people were raving about the product. Anyway, we shortly after applied to Shark Tank, and that's when the product really got the credibility behind it, because something like this it's new. It's not something you use every day. It's a new creation, and I think with any new creation you have to get validity behind it, and Shark Tank definitely helped us with that. So Shark Tank was a great experience. I was 17. He was 21 or 22. And my dad got to come with us because I was a minor. And we quarantined for 10 days in a hotel room. We ended up pitching the Sharks on the 10th day, and Lori jumped right on it. So we did a deal. We did $60,000 for 25% equity. And that was about 4 years ago now. So really, really long time ago.
Wow. That's so you thought of this basically when you were like 16, I believe, right? That
Yes.
is so amazing. I mean, I think, we really have to sometimes take a pause and think about what great ideas come from young people. I mean, I think we have ageism in both directions in this world. Like oh, you're too young to do something or you're too old to do something. But like to think that you thought of this in a dream, you're 16 years old. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And thankfully your brother was able to help and he was on board. So that experience you said at Shark Tank, that was a really good. Did you have? I'm just curious for people who like to watch the show. Were there any other offers, or like Lori jumped right on it and you were like Lori? Because we know Lori. Anybody who watches Lori Grenier is amazing at selling products. Like she's a QVC. She gets them in stores. She's like pretty amazing with that.
Yeah, we had an offer from Kevin. They didn't end up airing it. It was more so like a silly offer. Like he wanted a big chunk of the company. But they cut it up no matter what. They don't, people think it's scripted. It's not scripted, but what happens is you're in there for a very long time. We were in there for only a half hour, but you can be in there for like 2 hours.
Wow.
And they cut it up to 5, 8 minutes. So yeah, Lori jumped on it, and all the sharks were kind of just like, it's a Lori, it's a Lori product. So we ended up going with her. That's who we initially wanted, but when you're in there, you want to see it, what offers you can get. So we ended up going with that, and I mean, it was really the best case scenario, and it really worked out for us. But I also think, like, with a product that has a social mission and young entrepreneurs, they weren't gonna grill us too hard.
Yeah, yeah. How has it been since? Now, obviously, like you mentioned, the credibility, like being, first of all, being seen on TV and having Lori believe in it. I'm sure that means a lot. What was it like after that? As far as how things ramped up and how you had to maybe collaborate with Lori or her people or whatever. How's that experience been?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 4 years now, so um, if you put it in perspective, like, we the night that the Shark Tank episode aired, we did like triple the sales that we had. Um, so, you prepare for that. Like, they help you, and they know that there's going to be a lot of people on your website. There's going to be a lot of orders. So you stock up, and you pretty much maximize everything you can, so it goes smoothly. But the last 4 years have been great. We work with like over 170 universities. We're in 40 countries. We've sold over 700,000 products, and it's doing really well. Our main marketing channel is TikTok and Instagram, and we really just like post organically, and it gains a lot of traction. So it's been really good. Something that we're really trying to do is actually like stop the problem. Like, we don't want to be selling these products. So working with like legislatures and senators to be a voice for victims and show them, this is happening. Like, why aren't you guys doing anything to help the people in your cities? So that has been something that we're working on. And we work a lot with the military. The military has a really bad drink spiking problem. And so the bases there will order from us. But really like spreading awareness on the problem has been a huge component for us, and just like making people aware, because I don't think it's something that's been talked about in the past until like companies like ours have had a presence. So it's definitely a subject that people aren't comfortable sharing about until, someone else does. And a lot of victims get accused of drinking too much, so they don't say anything.
Mhm.
This is why like the problem goes unreported, because nobody wants to talk about it. So just bringing up the conversation is something that we have been really focusing on, in addition to like creating products that protect, your drink, whatever kind of drink you're drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, an interesting thing too, you don't have to be drinking alcohol to have it spiked, right? I mean, any beverage could be potentially spiked.
Yeah, that is something that people find very interesting, is that like it can be water, and it has happened to a lot of people before. It's like it's the false sense of security is like, I'm just drinking water. Why would anyone, do anything? But that's the same thing as like when you don't realize that your friends can be the perpetrators of the crime, and they are most of the time it's people that you know. So yeah, I think just like keeping people educated on that, and uh telling people not to let their guards down, because this stuff happens at like private parties and intimate events. Yeah, it's really scary stuff.
So clearly you responded in a way that like most people don't. Like most people don't create a product because that's pretty amazing. But and not to tell your friend's story, but how did your friend feel? Were they moved by this, like that you were actually so inspired to do? Because clearly this is a huge thing that you're doing to help, fight the problem.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, with starting the company, there's so many people now that come to us about their stories that we hear it every single day. A new story that someone has experienced drink spiking. and like thanking us for the product because they weren't able to go out before. So that has been really impactful. I even this week I had somebody who just sent me an email to be like, "Hey, I bought tickets to this concert." She's like, "I'm a single mom and I really wanted to just like treat myself, go to the concert." So I drove down to like I literally drove to another state for it, and she just was explaining how she asked somebody to take a picture of her and they drugged her drink. So she couldn't see any of the concert. She had to get picked up by someone. And luckily she was able to like get help by someone. But usually that doesn't happen. Like people are, they're not like actually present. So it's great that she was able to get help and have someone come pick her up. But literally just because like we felt so bad, I reached out to somebody at a different venue to be like, can you just let this girl see the concert and give her another ticket so she doesn't have to go alone? Like that's the stuff that we do. Like there's no, we just feel so bad for people that this is happening to, and we see it so often that like those little things that you can just kind of do here and there like make us feel really good. Um so yeah, I mean, I hope that um you know we can protect even more people. That's like really the goal. And people can really like have access to just like simple safety tools like NightCap that go a really long way.
Yeah. Have you heard now you heard from excuse me, like people reaching out like that, which is good that they feel comfortable to share their story because I think the more just like with I work with someone locally with mental health, the more people talk about things, we remove stigmas, which is so important in every facet. But do you ever hear any like stories like from colleges or whatever about impact? Do you ever hear any kind of like data about him or even if it's anecdotal like okay, we think we've seen some kind of, positive impact from these or anything like that?
Like randomly we'll be at a conference. We go to a lot of like crimes against women conferences, and you'll have a girl walk by and be like, "Oh, I got these on my college campus. Like everyone loved them." And so like hearing things like here and there like that is super cool because you're not actually on the campus. Like we don't know where these products are going, whose hands are getting into. So it's definitely really like empowering to hear that because you know that it actually is helping people and it's not just something that they look at and they throw away like a lot of items are. So you think like like receiving a scrunchie from your school, it's a signal. It's like this school cares about me. And I think it's also a conversation starter around the topic, because there's really nothing else that will start this conversation. So um, yeah, I mean, that would be cool to get some testimonials from universities though. So I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Sure. No, no. And I imagine it's hard because you don't know. I mean, I'm sure they are making an impact, but sometimes, there's so many different variables about things that you don't really, it's kind of hard to pinpoint that. Um, has this changed? Now you were in school, you said, how has this impacted how you go out? I mean, and maybe you don't go out because you're so hard working that you're too busy, but has it changed the way that like, I imagine you've got your guard up when you do go out?
Yeah, I think I've always kind of been like that. But for sure it's my guard has increased, but it's not only for me, it's more so for other people. Like I look I'm very aware of my surroundings, and I definitely do go out. I feel like as somebody who goes out and is in the safety space, it kind of allows me to do research, like literally physically be in those situations and be like, okay, like what, like how can we kind of avoid this, or like just looking at how people's behavior. And I'm not gonna lie, I live in a town where there's it's a very young demographic and then it's a very old demographic. So I see a lot that um is questionable, and I'm and in your when you're in certain environments you can kind of um like I guess the smallest thing goes a long way, like just kind of giving a girl like a little look or saying something that she is like maybe that something that she experienced was weird. Like, hey girl, like I'm here, you got me.
Mm-hmm.
Just like making those little gestures. I have in the past a lot like gone out with like products and like given them out, but most of the time I'm just like with my friends trying to enjoy myself. So um if it comes up, it comes up. But yeah, I think just like it's important for everyone to be, if you see something, say something kind of thing. And I think a lot of bystanders keep quiet most of the time. So, um, yeah, I try not to be that person ever. Like, even, when I was in college and I was going on like spring break, and there were girls like just sitting on the side of the road by themselves. Like, I feel obligated to like go and help them. Like, where are your friends? Um, so yeah, like I guess I'm the nightcap police.
That's interesting that you say like research though. I mean, hopefully you get to enjoy yourself at some point, but yeah, that's I mean, I never thought of it from that point of view because you're seeing like where your product is being used or where it can be used and how people are behaving and what they're doing. That is interesting point of view. One thing that kind of like and I love that you've created this, but I have a friend who does self-defense classes specifically for women and he'll often kind of yell at me for going out running by myself or whatever and I always say and I agree with being safe and precautious but I don't like when women have to change or alter like you can only do this or you can only do that. I think it's important to be prepared but I don't think we should have to limit our lives or change our lives because of the evil intentions of people out there. Like women shouldn't stop being able to go out to parties or go out and have fun. It's just being alert, aware, and maybe, bringing your product along.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a huge debate where it's like, yeah, we shouldn't have to do anything. We shouldn't have to be aware of our surroundings. We shouldn't have to be like watching the bartenders make our drink. Like, but the reality is that like we only will do that on like we'll do it only until, something happens, if that makes sense. Like we start to do that until um or when something happens. Which like we want to try to avoid. Like we want to stop that before it happens. So that's why we tell people, all these different safety tips and give the product out. Like I think too, it's just kind of the world that we're in now, and I agree with you, but I think like adding like if I go on like a run, first of all, I don't go really at night ever. I would never do that because that's
No,
scary. But if I go on a run by myself, I bring a ring that has like a sticky thing on it and or like a pointy thing on it. But I think everyone should be like ready, like just have something on them that makes them feel safer because you never know. And yeah, I agree with you. I think it sucks. I think we shouldn't have to do it, but um it happens and
yeah.
that's the world.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. It's just like he would say to me, "Well, find someone." Well, sometimes you can't, if you can't find somebody to go with you at the same time, then you do the things like you just mentioned. Obviously, I would never run at night, but like being safe, carrying the mace or carrying the product that will help you because there's a lot out there for safety. Yeah, and being educated, we do need to be smart about that. Going, running where it's well lit and everything like that. So what I know with the products I received, I saw there is a keychain. So you are kind of varying a little bit from what you started with. Do you see this expanding in different directions? Anything that you could share? I'm sure there's always things that might pop in your mind during another dream, but like, what's your future with this? Do you see anything that you want to expand on?
In the product realm of things, not at the moment
Okay.
because we literally have so many things that like I can't even imagine what would be next. We have scrunchies for women, um, you know, keychains as a unisex option, whoever you are. We have disposable products for like businesses to buy, like cheap stickers that are disposable. We have bottle tops, we have can coolers. We have everything for each drink for every person to use. So if something were to come along, I would be like, wow, how did we not think of this? But I think in the business aspect, like just getting into more people's hands and um, bringing up the conversation and being the voice for victims is really like the main goal because the problem is just happening way more than it should be. And, there's just so many ways that we can expand there. Every bar that sells alcohol, any place that literally has a bottle could sell, like you could you could talk about expanding in like concert venues and music festivals and like student travel like hostels. There are so many ways that you could get this product out there. Um so I think we just try to like focus on what is already going on. How can we expand on that? Because it is really easy to get overwhelmed. But yeah, like if we're in 170 universities, why can't we be in 1,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always room for growth, obviously. Yeah, that's, I mean, as you're talking, I never like there's so many possibilities. Like you're saying, the concert venues. I mean, basically anywhere people are that need to be safe. That's a lot of places. Have you received any besides the people like who are using it, the consumers? Have you received any kind of like what is the I guess I want to say what was the response like? Was there initially, I know you said people until you were really on Shark Tank, they weren't sure. Have the universities, because a lot of universities have had a lot of bad publicity for a lot of sexual assaults and things like that. Were they a lot of them pretty receptive? I mean, obviously 170 is a good number, but you still, like you said, you can be in so many more.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is that the universities actually come to us. So
Oh,
yeah, so we're not picking up the phone and calling these people. They know that there's a problem and they have to do something about it. So it's the same as when you step onto a campus and you get a condom in your freshman bag. It's like this is something that has been going on and they need to do something about it. And unfortunately, like I've been getting all the emails about the crimes that are already happening. Like school just started in August and I mean, it's already a problem. So, um, yeah, it's I think it hopefully is making an impact to students and making them feel like a little bit safer when going out. But yeah, it's really just the universities like needing to do something.
yeah. Well, that's good that they are coming to you, but again, they need to do something because I mean, they have to be aware that they have a problem. So they need to be doing this and much more, I'm sure. What do you see as I start to wrap up here? What do you see for your I just thinking long term for you? Is this like the kind of thing that you want to stay in or I mean, I know you talked a lot about like advocating it sounds like for the victims and for women's safety and things like that. Do you see yourself maybe even taking on a role that's I mean I don't know, I could even see you in office or so you never know. Like where would you like to see yourself beyond the product?
It's like the second time someone's told me that this week that I should be a politician. Ugh, I don't know how I feel about that because I stay far away from that. But and like advocacy, I absolutely can see. I I feel like I already kind of do that. I already advocate for people, and it's interesting because the people that I do meet that have, like, changed laws around, all these different problems, like, I find that I, like, want to hear more about it because, um, I think I'm, like, drawn to it. So, yes, I think advocacy is definitely a route that I wanna go down, but I've kind of put myself in a position of, like, not having nightcap and not waking up every day and, like, working on this brand, and I'm like, "That feels so wrong to me." So, it's not something that we have planned to, sell it, but, um, yeah, like, it feels like my firstborn child, and I don't I can't let it go. So, yeah, it's my little baby, so I don't think it's going anywhere, but yeah.
Well, you are young, so you have so much life that you can change your mind and down the line. And I know whatever it is that you'll do some great things because, oh my gosh, at 16 to come up with something that's such a smart, useful, needed product, I think that's amazing. That's great. So I know you'll do great things to continue.
Thank
Um,
you.
I want to thank you so much for your time, and I think this is such a wonderful product. But I love your perspective, your point of view of really being looking out for women and looking out even when you're out, just looking for because there are so many young women who need that. I'm 53, so I'm well past the like I want to be home on my couch by the time it's 10 o'clock. But I went to Penn State, which is a big party school, and I look back and I go, I don't know how the hell I got out of there without trouble. And I mean, things like this have been around for a long time. Thankfully, they weren't as big like spiking drinks because I was stupid. I did stupid things. And so I'm grateful that I never got harmed or anything. But I love your perspective of looking out for young women. I think that's great. Is there anything else that we did not talk about, or anything about the product or yourself, or anything at all that you wish that we had and that you'd like to talk about now before we wrap up here?
No, I would just add that the call that I had today about the spiking incidents and what people should do, what they should look out for, was actually Penn State paper. So, yeah.
Really? Okay. So were they looking for advice from you, like tips from you, more or less?
Yeah. Tips, just like more on the topic of drink spiking. And the funniest, I mean, no, it's not funny, but they asked me, what should students be who should students be looking out for, strangers or the bartenders? And I said, no, neither. Well, I said all of the above, but actually your friends, that's what you should be looking out for. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and I was a little sister at a fraternity too. So again, I managed to come out of there okay. But what I will say for my case anyway, when I left home, I was really homesick because I left in the middle of my sophomore year to go down to Penn State. And for me, I found camaraderie and friendship, which I know fraternities get a horrible rap, but it depends on the people in them. It depends. But again, I did some stupid things, is what I want to say. So I'm glad Penn State reached out to you because certainly they are one of the big party schools that could certainly use the help, I'm sure. I do find that interesting though, about the people, because I'm a little surprised by that too, that it's the people that you're with that and maybe that's a real good takeaway for young women, or well, and anyone really, to take a look at who are you spending time with. Do you trust them, and should you trust them? And that's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Well,
you so much for having me.
absolutely. Thank you. And so I have two samples that I'm going to give away, but if people want to get them, is the best place the website?
The website and Amazon.
Okay, I did see an ad come up on Amazon. So is it, I'm sorry, I did not look real quick. What is the website address, if you could
The
give it?
website is nightcapit.com, Amazon, and then we're also in Forever 21. So,
Great. Okay, awesome. Well, I will put that in the show notes. So for I know my one friend whose daughters, well, two are graduated. One is a sophomore. She'll probably want to buy one for her daughter. But I mean, that's a great thing for moms who, I'm sure you're thinking about your kids, something to pick up. But anyone, I will put that in the show notes so that you guys can check it out. And again, thank you so much, Shira, for this. And I know that we can look forward to great things from you, and just keep on doing what you're doing. I appreciate it. And I know everyone really does. Um, so thank you to my listeners. If you would like to, again, take a look at the show notes to learn more about this product. And if you would like to sponsor this podcast, you know that I have Budget Through Life as my sponsor currently, but reach out to me if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast. It is cheaper than, I guarantee you, your Starbucks that you spend on Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, or whatever your spices are for the month. And if you cannot invest in it that way, please remember that it means a lot if you can just share the podcast with a friend, family member, anyone that you can think of who might want to listen. That is really helpful too. Write a testimonial. All of that stuff means so much. So, as I always say every week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.